I can call the meeting to order of the Redevelopment Commission on this 6th day of March, 2008. First thing we need to do is ask Mayor Wright to come up and he'll swear in all the commission members for their upcoming year.
Welcome. If each of you would rise, please. Raise your right hand. I'm going to do this as a group. So when I say state your name, state your name. I state your name.
I, Terry Griffin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of Beach Grove Redevelopment Commission
of the office of the Beach Grove Redevelopment Commission
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability,
and to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you. Ask each of you now.
You all have received copies of the minutes from the November meeting. If there are no additions or deletions, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve the November meeting minutes.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. You've all received copies of the minutes of the January meeting. If there are no additions or deletions, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion that we approve the January meeting.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you. Under old business, there is none. Under new business, we have introduction of the confirmatory resolution for Group A. Mr. Hall.
Yes, at the February meeting of the Common Council, they approved the expansion of the existing redevelopment area to include 3 new parcels: the Jackson Press property, the Bomar property, and the Burger King property. Now that they have approved that expansion of the redevelopment area and found that it conforms with the general plan of development for the city, it's a resolution is before this commission to confirm that expansion of the redevelopment area. This would be the final step in the process in including these 3 new properties in the redevelopment area. Prior to the commission considering this resolution, you need to hold a public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions for me? If not, at this time, I will open the floor for comments from citizens. If you would, please hold your comments to 3 minutes. First, I have David Grenoble. Please state your name and address.
My name is Dave Grenoble, and I live at 1331 Park Meadow Drive in Beach Grove, Indiana. And first off, I just want to say thank you guys. I know this is an appointed position for all of you, and you give up tons of time and effort, and sometimes you get swung at occasionally with criticism. I have a couple statements, but I need to know if I can ask a question that pertains directly to the resolutions.
Well, after you get done with your comments and your questions, then take your seat and then we'll answer the question.
Okay, because part of it was I needed one thing clarified with the statement that I was going to make. And basically, if you go on to the various websites, especially IN.gov, it specifically says that the Redevelopment Commission are responsible for developing plans and managing tools used to address conditions of blighted redevelopment areas. And that by doing that, you have the ability to place these in tax incremental funds and to use those funds to either repair underdeveloped properties or blighted areas. The areas that you guys are talking about right now with Burger King, Arrow Steel, Bomar, and Jackson, They don't look blighted to me, so my question to you is, what are you going to do to prepare these areas or to make these areas better when there are other businesses that are obviously blighted? The landfill is obviously an underdeveloped piece of property that should be in the TIF zone. The area on Emerson Avenue with AMCO is an area that should definitely be in the TIF zone. There are other areas that are definitely blighted areas that would benefit from what the Redevelopment Commission and the TIF projects are for, other than these other buildings. I don't understand why we're putting perfectly good buildings into a TIF zone other than just to collect money. What are we going to do when they come back to us and ask for that money back? Because being placed in a TIF zone, they have that right to come to you to ask to get money back to keep them developed to where they should be. So are we prepared for when Alro Steel comes back and they want to make an addition to their project? Are we prepared for Bomar to come back and take money? Are you guys prepared to handle that? Also, some of these projects that you guys are talking about, according to 2003 numbers, are already in TIF zones. And I didn't know if you were aware of that. And supposedly Beech Grove is already receiving money from these areas. So why are we re-TIFing an already TIF district? So I would ask you why we would take this chance with all of the things that are in front of the legislature at this time that you have no control over. You guys can only do what they tell you can do. The things that are going on, including with TIF that's in front of the legislature, that you guys have no control over. Why would we take this big of a chance for a potential gain with as much potential risk that there is, especially with the financial situation of the city? And so I guess my 3 minutes are out.
Thank you.
Mr. Shaver, care to comment?
Let me finish the getting this down. Answering the last question first, why do we do this with the legislature acting in ways that are not controlled by the city? The legislature's actions are never controlled by the city. In fact, with all due respect to Brian, I'm not even sure that the actions of the legislature are controlled by the legislature.
I was thinking the same thing.
The purpose of this addition is to add Alro Steel, Jackson Press, and the Burger King projects. Alro Steel came to us early in the process before this designation, saying that if they are put into it, they may have additional expansions to do, and they may want a rail siding. In addition, let me make sure that I'm not misstating myself here. Let me look at the map. Both of these, all three of Bomar, Jackson Press, and Alro are located on Big 4, which needs improvement. We believe will need improvement, especially as CSX and refined metals are redeveloped. And thirdly is, I don't believe, and I will defer to the two lawyers, that that it is required that every property has to exhibit blighting influences. They are part of a larger group of properties, including CSX and refined metals and that whole corridor. That also includes, by the way, the old rock pile site as you go up that, what's the alternative road? Is it Big 4 Road? And then the other one is, I'm sorry, I might have said Garsang and those. So there are lots of infrastructure issues that need to be addressed in that sector of town. That sector of town will quickly become the infrastructure, especially the roads and the power, sewers, water, those sorts of things could easily become overwhelmed if there was significant expansion at CSX and refined metals. And we believe that it's appropriate to put them in. I will defer to the attorneys for anything else that they want to say.
Well, just to follow up on the question regarding, or the comment regarding whether these properties could come to the commission and ask for their TIF revenue back, that would not be permitted. In becoming part of the redevelopment area, the TIF area, any future growth from those parcels in revenue will be captured by the Redevelopment Commission. The Redevelopment Commission has to spend that money on projects that are either in the redevelopment area or serve or benefit the redevelopment area, but those property tax owners themselves do not have any right to the money.
And just to add one more item for you, Dave, I don't know what version of the code you're looking at, but most of the references to blighted properties are really areas in need of redevelopment. You may have found a reference to blight someplace, but those have all been removed from the code theoretically, and it's the designation not of being blighted, but areas in need of redevelopment in the judgment of the folks before you.
Well, everything that I got, Brian, was off of IN.gov.
Yeah.
And all the code specifically states for blighted areas, and it's to repair these blighted areas. And if you put a company in a blighted area, you're supposed to use that TIF money for those properties in the TIF, according to the IN.gov.
That's
Okay.
it's really not what it says, but
Okay.
I appreciate your thoughts on it.
Next, Dennis Morris.
My name's Kenny Morris. I live at 454 North 17th. Mike said a minute ago I didn't realize we were talking about Arrow too, because the description I got from Terry is Burger King, Jackson, Crest, and Bomar. But if we are talking about Arrow, according to the Franklin Township Assessor, Arrow was put in an economic redevelopment area by Indianapolis in 2000. And Arrow itself was granted a tax abatement in 2005 for 5 years. Now, I'm not sure, according to what I've read, a tax abatement lowers the amount of TIF revenue we get. But speaking on the other properties, I'm concerned because of the state of the legislature. This is going to lower the amount of money the city gets for the general fund. And with talk of possibly not just us, but everybody, running out of money, if this is a good thing to put them in there now because of public safety and everything. And with that, too, could not Bomar and Jackson also come to Beech Grove or Marion County and ask for a tax abatement? Because obviously, Arrow had to come to somebody, whether it be Beech Grove or Marion County, in 2005 and ask for a tax abatement. So being this lowers the amount of TIF money we get, I'm concerned that Bomar and Jackson could do the same thing. Other than that, being we're short on time, I just appreciate you guys letting me speak, and somebody can answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks. Care to comment, Mr. Shea?
You are correct. The tax abatement does lower the amount of TIF dollars that can be gotten. If the other properties, if I understood you were asking tell me if I have this right, Terry. If other properties are added, I'm sorry, I'm trying to take notes here at the same, go ahead.
There's 3 parcels that are added to the expanded area, the Burger King, Bomar, and Jackson Press.
Right.
In addition, in order for the redevelopment commission to capture its TIF personal property taxes, they have to make certain findings and designate particular taxpayers as subject to personal property TIF. In this resolution, Alro Steel is being designated as a taxpayer from whom personal property TIF can also be captured. So there's only 3 properties that are being added to the boundaries of the redevelopment area.
I understand that. Mike brought up Arrow, so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's why Alro was mentioned as well.
Okay.
If other properties are added to the tax abatement, they would have to make additional investments.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
Because I think that's what.
Wait, I don't think
Arrow
we're
did
supposed to be
when they got
debating. I think you finished and I'm supposed to be talking.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that okay?
That's correct.
All right. They will have to make additional investment. In fact, that is a part of the whole plan. I would love to have those guys, everyone out there, double the size of their plant tomorrow. I would be happy if we gave tax abatement to them to double their plant tomorrow. I'd be happier if we didn't give them anything to double their plant tomorrow. But in the other cases, the cases of the competing communities, that they will go to, because all of these guys, in fact, we a couple years ago went through a year-long process with a company moving out of Westfield that wanted to go to Sheridan, and all that was done was that they used the Sheridan proposal to leverage what they got out of Westfield. And what will happen out of those other ones is there will be road improvements, there will be rail sidings, there will be TIF and tax abatement offered. So a part of what we're trying to do here is to, by designating these 3 properties out there because they are already growing. We know that there is a reduced amount of TIF because of the growth, but we want to encourage them, A, to grow in place and not to leave, and B, to be able to capture whatever money is left over for improvements to infrastructure that are out there, including the roads that are out there. Is the third one that's north and south, is that Arlington?
I'm sorry.
The third one that goes north and south out there in that general vicinity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Arlington is a particularly bothersome one for me because I'm not sure who actually is going to be responsible for improving it. It's officially a City of Indianapolis road, but again, when we start putting truck traffic on that, I'm concerned that those old roads will be able to hold up. And that's just one example. There are a dozen other things that could be required in terms of getting new businesses out there, including things like high-speed telecommunications and other issues. So the primary reason is for the is to be able to improve infrastructure in the industrial area of the city, which is, I want to say it right, east of Emerson.
Thank you. Joseph Griffin.
How you doing? My name's Joe Griffin. I live at 65 South 17th Beach Grove. I'm talking about the properties that we have there, and I'm concerned. I think we're taking in too many properties at once. Right now, we currently have 79 properties under the old TIF as far as lots and everything, and we are collecting money off of that. I feel we're taking in a heck of a lot to where we really don't need to, because everything that goes in doesn't come out. I guess it has to be neutralized. Would that be it? You might put $1 million in, but it doesn't mean you're getting $1 million out once the numbers get neutralized, is the way it was explained to me and that stuff. And according to what I found in December of '06, out of those 79 properties, we got $148,661.01 out of that area. Then come June, we got $161,355.70 out of the second portion of that. And also, according to your little statement here, is this the one that we're actually going by, the proposal on down through here? That's the one that got listed. Would this be, can I approach it?
I'm not sure what that is. That's a description of the areas. Yeah.
So we're going off of this stuff.
Those would be, that looks like the areas, yeah.
Okay. Now, according to this legal description that you have here, I got one or two concerns off of this. We're talking about the Burger King abatement as a major reinvestment. When did we capture Burger King, and what are we looking for in reinvestment? I see that you're saying it's blighted factors cause and abandonment and all that other stuff. And then you're saying down there a little further that Emerson Avenue has stimulated the existing property owners as well, which is pretty hard to prove or not prove. We've already said that before and stuff. And then you also are talking about the old Amco station. Are the tanks still in there, and what are we going to do with it? And who would be responsible for that? Then you also go farther on down there talking about the Churchman Corridor. Beach Grove Redevelopment Commission is considering the exploration of long-term improvements along Arlington Avenue as a second connection to I-465.
I'm sorry, that's Group B, that's not on the agenda.
Oh, that's Group B? Oh, all right.
30
I'm sorry.
seconds, 30 seconds, Mr. Becker.
Beg pardon?
30 seconds.
Okay, well, I'm concerned about the amount of TIF that we're taking in there. As I told Joe the other day, I think we got enough TIF in there. I appreciate the job you guys are doing and everything else. I know it's a tough job, and you're getting a butt chewing for nothing. So, you know, I think we all agree on the betterment of Beach Grove. It's just our ideas and how we find it and what goes on through there. It's not personal or anything else. I enjoy everything that you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Stephanie Hubbard.
Just to address one of those issues,
Yes, I'm sorry.
the redevelopment commission does not assume any liability for the Amoco station conditions.
Right.
That would remain with the owners, just to reassure the commission and membership of the members present.
Stephanie Hubbard.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Hubbard, for those of you that don't know me. I live at 129 South 2nd. I appreciate all your time and effort, especially you guys that volunteer to do this. I know it's a lot of work. And most of my questions were actually answered. I have a question about the sports park, which I understand isn't a part of this, so if I could ask you guys when the meeting's over. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't think we answered Joe's stuff there. The first, thank you, Joe, for your courtesy. That's much appreciated. I believe that the vast majority of I'm sorry. Let me start at the beginning of this. When Rick and I first were doing the original redevelopment areas that included South Emerson and Amtrak Conrail is what we called it at the time. It was clear that the issues on South Emerson, particularly with the old hotel that had to be torn down, and the issues that went with the price of acquiring that hotel, and a number of other things, that there were people in there that were simply not going to move willingly. And we at one point began to undertake the process of condemnation of the hotel. I believe it is correct, and I will defer to public safety folks, that there were a number of runs out there for things like prostitution and illegal activities of one form or another. It was clearly a problem area, and there were clearly people that were interested in redeveloping the South Emerson site. Now, there are two of them specifically. The one that started the process was originally Lowe's, and then Lowe's backed out of that original process. Walmart came back in, and then Lowe's came back in after they saw that the site was being redeveloped, and changed their mind from before. I think that's a very compelling issue. The same developer and the same occupant rejected the site originally when the hotel was there, and then when Lowe's took up the empty space, they went back in and decided that it was worthwhile to be at that corner. That is the way I believe redevelopment works. Now, it doesn't always work the same way 2 times in a row. It depends on the situation, but you have one of the best and highest traffic interchanges off of I-465 that was, in my opinion, underdeveloped. Now, the Amico station, we don't have any liability. I believe the tanks have been removed. That site is being redeveloped, but it's not included in this proposal, I do not believe, right? Amico station, the Burger King,
it's not in this
proposal.
Correct.
But let's address it since it's there. That person has met with the mayor multiple times and was interested in knowing what else was going on when they bought that old station out. And I don't know, that person will have to come and give you his own personal testimony as to why he did this and what he's seeking to do. But his interests in this were actually, I think, were stimulated, or at least were helped along by the fact that the city was recognizing the issues of blight and was beginning to address them. And we continue to have nibbles, despite the fact that this is not a particularly good year for new economic development, continue to have nibbles about being interested simply because of the volume of traffic that's on Emerson at that location. There's a second thing in this that I wanted to address that Joe didn't really ask, so if you'll permit me, I'm going to answer a question you didn't ask. But this individual site development along the way, don't do this? Yeah, okay. There's an individual sites have been fragmented off, and I think that person has expressed an interest in possibly working with his neighbors to make it so that you can develop internal traffic corridors to get people so that if they go to whatever ends up being in the Amico station, they can get to adjacent sites without getting back on Emerson and turning left again. That's an important piece of this process as well. As far as the number of properties that there were, I have no doubt that you sounds like you did your homework. I never really counted them, but I think really there's only 2 throwing off any significant amount of money, and that's Walmart and Lowe's. And basically what it boils down to is that I would offer, and I respect the fact that people can disagree with my perspective in this, but I would offer that is exactly what we're trying to do, is to get a couple of rounds of economic development to happen that haven't happened here, And again, I point to the fact that we started much of this process under Warner Wiley with many of the same basic parameters that we have now, just a little bit more actual result than Warner got the chance to happen. Warner testified at the very first one of these that we did, that he went and called CSX after they got the property, and CSX didn't even know they owned it. They bought it as part of Conwet Rail, and it was part of those attachments that go to the stack of papers. So it takes a long time to get that kind of stuff started. I really believe that what's going to happen here is that the CSX parcel, the refined metals parcel, I testified this before, have the opportunity, if we can make sure we keep the infrastructure up, have the opportunity to generate quite a large windfall of assessed value for the town. But I fully understand and respect the fact some people will draw the line at different places in terms of where we go and what we do, how many of these we include.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for shutting up.
There are no other remonstrators. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. No, that's
There were two people that signed that. There's two sign-up sheets.
this one is council representative, and they're on the agenda to speak at a
Okay,
different
very
time.
good, thank you, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion. No, that we close the public hearing. A little ahead of yourself. Is there a second? Second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, at this time, we'd ask Mayor Wright to address the commission.
First, let me reiterate what's been said a couple of times tonight, and that's the amount of effort that gets put in by a volunteer group sometimes goes very much unnoticed. And I don't say it enough myself that the hours you put in are greatly appreciated by this community. And the amount of effort that it takes outside the meeting times is even largely unnoticed by a lot of people that appreciate what you do, and I just wanted to say that publicly to you on behalf of the citizens of Beech Grove. Also, much is said and much has been said and much continues to be said about what does this do to everyone else who relies on property tax base in Beech Grove. And most people know that nearly half of the property tax revenue winds its way to the schools. And I think Diane Burns here tonight is also a benefactor of much of the property tax revenue that comes from our citizens. So the obvious question is, and Jeff Peters has done a stellar job more than once of explaining to you, what happens to these other units of government when you capture increment? And I think that those two words are very important here, because you are capturing the growth that is anticipated. You're not taking anything away from what's there. As you started this Group A, much of the Group A process started last April or May or sometime early last year, and just now being completed. And it was the recognition of the abatements in part that you're taking into account tonight. And Alro, Bomar, Jackson, all of those companies, I think it's already been said, stand to benefit greatly from being part of this and producing local revenue that helps this area grow. But back to the big idea here is that we redevelop our community. And the state legislature has given us the tools to do that. And not so much at the peril of other units of government, but all units of government benefit from what you're doing. All units of government benefit from us building our economy, and this is the way to do it. And I had the pleasure of meeting with our school superintendent on more than one occasion, but most recently on this very topic, because we want to make sure that, that it's understood by the largest taxing authority within our city, that there's a clear understanding between him and I of what our overall goal is. And I shared with him the three goals that you have embraced yourself and the Redevelopment Commission's focus, and that is to grow the economic value of the city. And no taxing authority would argue that that's a bad thing, because that's a good thing. Now, it doesn't happen tomorrow, it doesn't happen next week, it doesn't happen next month, might not even happen in the next budget cycle. However, if it doesn't happen at all, we do know what happens in the next budget cycle, and that's that everyone's taxing, everyone's budgets, everyone's revenue stream is negatively impacted. And Rex and I had, we very much agree on that concept and that goal. The community's 3 goals, those 3 that I have established as my administration's goals, and I think you have fully embraced those goals, is to improve the citizens' quality of life, to increase the citizens' personal wealth, and to promote community pride and ownership. All of these benefit everyone, especially the schools. I liken the TIF acronym to today's investments in our future, because it's exactly what it is. TIF allows the Redevelopment Commission, as Jeff has said many times, to levy all units of government's taxes and invest those for the benefit of economic development. And that is the goal, that is your charge, that's what you were doing. So I wanted to make sure that you knew, from me, that I'm very sensitive to that. I'm at the disposal of those other taxing units, and am happy to meet with them and understand these goals. There's 2 things that, when Rex and I met most recently, that he didn't understand. And I think it's good for you to understand those as well as everyone else, and that is that the commercial personal property, we talked about capturing ALRO industrial personal property, which is your option. However, in the commercial redevelopment, such as Walmart and Lowe's, you don't capture that. So the personal property from commercial redevelopment goes into the general AV. And that wasn't known, at least by Rex. He didn't know that. But there's a couple or maybe $3 million of personal property that came from that tax increment area of the South Emerson area. The other thing that happens in the base, when you create a TIF area, you freeze the base that's there. Now that base continues to grow by natural causes, such as general reassessment or specific reassessment in the case of the 2006 reassessment year. So that the frozen base does continue to grow as the legislature allows it to grow. Those were a couple of things I think were not well understood, and now Rex fully understands that, and that was helpful for him as well. So anyway, I wanted to make you aware that I have taken those steps. I'll continue to take those steps with any other unit of government that needs to understand what our primary goals are. I also wanted to extend an offer to you if you have questions for me based on tonight's hearing. Based on the actions you're about to take, I'll be available to you for that.
Any questions for me?
Great, thanks very much.
Council Representative Ross Barton.
I'd just like to make a statement on behalf of myself. I'm Ross Barton. I serve on the City Council as District 3 representative. I wanted to express my reasons for support. I understand that Beech Grove has an opportunity to make use of the tax increment financing from the Group A properties so as to provide the citizens of Beech Grove, merchants, workers, entrepreneurs, the people that help this community thrive with the following. Provide them with resources that can be used to establish and maintain a competitive advantage in attracting new business development by capitalizing on our existing advantages, such as our location to roads, railways, etc. To provide agility to act and make decisions at the speed of business, or at least closer to that, instead of at the speed of government, which can be kind of slow. So I'll provide a quick return on investments and on tax funds through increased funding from the state of Indiana, as I understand it, and long-term return on investment through increasing the assessed value of Beech Grove, understanding there are risks in anything that you do. Another second reason to support this, assessed value has been about flat the last 7 or 8 years from what I've seen, and inflation, etc., costs have kept increasing. Some kind of action needs to be taken to increase the assessed value or our taxes will basically keep increasing due to inflation, et cetera. And that could lead to Beech Grove being a less desirable place to live through time, worst case. Third reason, hey, we have our own city, our own local government, our own local police and fire departments, library, public safety boards, sanitation, trash departments, etc. I want to see this continue to be the case. I think we have the ability to act and to influence our own environment here. I appreciate the services provided, and generally the people work pretty hard. Got Ballard's in office now. Property taxes look like they might be capped. I don't know what the results of this will be. Trying to project different scenarios is tough. I think it likely that, or possible that revenue could be decreased somewhat in the short term. Again, I keep coming back to assessed value, and I think this measure is going to provide more resources to help to make Beech Grove more attractive to business, hopefully in the long run, increasing our assessed value. That's my statement.
Thank you. Councilman John Jennings. He's not that windy, I know.
Yeah, good evening. I'm John Jennings, District 4. I just wanted to give you my support and the support of District 4 in the TIF dollars, the TIF advances that you're planning on making. Just want you to know that me and my constituents are behind you. So, thank you.
I'll offer to any other council members that would like to address the commission. If not, questions from the Redevelopment Commission? Anyone? No? At this time, I'll entertain pardon me? No? Well, what would be the pleasure of the commission on the resolution of the Griffin property?
I move that we approve and enter this resolution and place the Group A properties in the TIF.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any further discussion? It's approved. Mr. Shaver. Yeah. Introduction of the comprehensive redevelopment plan.
In your packets, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In your packets, I have included a copy of the executive summary of the Beech Grove Comprehensive Redevelopment Plan, which was distributed to the City Council March the 3rd, I believe was the date, at the last meeting. Was it March the 3rd? Okay. I will not go through that again, but that was the text and fundamentally the points that made on that particular evening. Secondly, in your packet, I've given you a copy of a letter that I have prepared to be entered into the record with regard to the business that was accomplished tonight. And I will take a minute here to talk to you about the process from here with regard to the comprehensive redevelopment plan. If you look down in the bullet points, that's where we start. We're preparing to complete the CFF grant process. This comprehensive redevelopment plan was TIF money that was leveraged into a $5,300 leverage to a $50,000 grant from the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. The CFF regulations require that the BGRC or the city hold a public hearing on the grant process, which will be advertised and held later this month. It's our intent to incorporate public comments from this initial public hearing, the one that's coming up, I think the 20th, is that right, Terry?
That is correct.
At the public hearing into the comprehensive redevelopment plan, and I realize that
I'm sorry, Mike. We will have, the Redevelopment Commission will discuss the comprehensive plan
on the 20th.
March the 20th. The public hearing is actually April the 24th.
Okay. That sounds like it's a little...
I'm sorry, that's wrong too. There's two pieces to the comprehensive plan. I'm sorry, for the grant is March the 20th.
Right, for the grant, it's March the 20th, okay. This has to be separated. We are separating this. It doesn't have to be separated. We are separating this. Generally speaking, most communities hold the comprehensive plan public hearing and the grant public hearing at the same time. At the city council meeting, someone suggested that the redevelopment commission and the city council should go in excess of the statute and go farther to obtain public comment. So what we are proposing is that there will be comments accepted on the redevelopment plan on March the 20th, and that will be for purposes of the grant. Now, what we will do is incorporate those comments and responses to them into the draft document that is then submitted to the state, and we will then solicit from the state any comments that they have, things that they want changed, things that they want addressed, while we also tell the state that we are going forward with a series of public workshops in cooperation with the new city council so that we can bring the city council on board, answer all of their questions. The workshops are the same basic topics that we had before. They will be slightly different, but there will be, the first one we're going to do is we'll cover TIF and the functions of TIF and answer the city council questions, hopefully at the same time as we answer other questions that come up from the public. This additional public round of public information, including the workshops and then a second public hearing, will then consummate itself within the next 60 days approximately. I want to emphasize that these additional 4 workshops are it's only required that you have 1 public hearing. The 4 workshops we already held were in excess. These 4 additional workshops are in excess, but I think they are appropriate to allow the new city council to not simply be placed in a position to simply either rubber stamp what was previously done and get them engaged in the process. Thank you very much, all of you, for your comments of support in this process. Then, as this thing winds itself down, we will go through the last public hearing, which we hope by that time will have encompassed comments from things like tonight. It will embrace the original redevelopment plan for South Emerson, the original redevelopment plan for Amtrak. This comprehensive redevelopment plan will pull together, because, again, comprehensive, we will pull together Group A. It will pull together a discussion of whatever is in Group B in this process. And it will integrate all of those things with the comprehensive plan for Beech Grove that was done by the Department of Metropolitan Development. There are lots of elements out here. At one point in the old days, when Warner and I were working together, we were frustrated by the fact that, I mentioned this the other night, that Beech Grove was referred to as an urbanized area in Perry Township. You know, I think it's a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more complex than that. And so we've got a lot of coordination to do. We will itemize each project and each project strategy. We will bring together the issues of public information that go with that. And we will set up strategies for you guys to make sure that hopefully, as a matter of the normal function of daily government in Beech Grove, information will flow seamlessly to the public about what you're doing and give the public the opportunity to interact with you, to ask questions, to make suggestions, and those sorts of things as we go forward. This is the first time that I am aware of in the state of Indiana where such a vast integration and a vast level of comprehensiveness has been attempted. Most other communities don't have the DMD writing a comprehensive plan for individual cities. Cities have to do them themselves. Most comprehensive plans from the cities don't have to coordinate backwards to DMD. Redevelopment plans individually have been brought together. But at the end of this process, what I hope anybody that wants to read it, and as I told Joellen, I can bore myself with my own writing, but anybody that wants to read this plan will understand exactly why the projects were picked, exactly what the projects do for the taxpayers of Beech Grove with the mayor's three goals, as he succinctly stated. I never got it down to 3, so thanks. You helped me. And let people understand how you plan to try to make the property values in their neighborhoods worth more. I have, if you would not mind, I will read this if you want, but I don't see any really need to do that. If you would simply put that into the record, I would appreciate it. And I hope that at the end of this process, everyone will agree that the city and the redevelopment, city council and the redevelopment commission have gone far beyond the statutory requirements for public information and public input. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mike?
If we can get all that done, it'll be good, right, Cindy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaver. The timeline for the approval of the comprehensive plan and the Group B properties will be as follows. On Thursday, March the 20th, there'll be a meeting with the Redevelopment Commission to discuss the comprehensive plan and approve the grant, and a public hearing for the grant process. On Monday, April 7th, the council will hold public hearings on the comprehensive plan, including the adoption of the resolution for approving Group B properties. On Thursday, April 24th, the Redevelopment Commission will hold public hearings for the comprehensive plan and the confirmatory resolution for Group B. That timeline will be posted on our website. Any other comments from commission members or any other business?
With regard to Group B, when the declaratory resolution is done, there will be in an effort to go beyond the rules again, the requirements again, Jeff Peters will do a preliminary tax impact analysis so that people can see the preliminary numbers about how this proposal affects different taxing units before the process even gets started, instead of what's required in the statute, which is doing it at
And we will
weekend.
post that also. If there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you all.